Hey, this is Tom Glavine, and you're listening to Out of Left Field on the Grueling Truth.
Oh, is this thing on? Is it on?
Oh my God, it still works.
Oh wait, do we still remember how to do this?
I mean, I said the equipment still works. I didn't say all that.
Oh, all right. Let's see if I can remember this. Hey guys, welcome back to Out of Left Field. Graham and Chris back with you again. That sounds right. It sounds like the show. Holy crap, we're actually back. What's going on, guys? Yeah, it's been a minute or half a freaking baseball season that we've been gone. Lot of craziness pretty much been going on in our lives. Unfortunately, much as we love the show, forced us to put kind of some things into perspective and prioritize some things. And unfortunately, we had to put the show, I guess, on the IL, for lack of a better, on the 60-day IL. It's pretty much what happened with the show. So I'll speak for me. My company that I've worked for the last 4 or 5 years, we were a third-party contractor for a major satellite provider, and we were acquired by the corporate provider with really no notice until day of. I kind of pieced it together in speaking with some of my upper management of what was going on the day before. So that kind of turned my world upside down as a warehouse manager, which is what I do away from here. And Chris can definitely attest that the hours that I was putting in because of the lack of really being aware of what was happening ahead of time did not really condone itself to any other things besides working a bit of sleep.
A very little bit of sleep, from what I understand, or what I gathered anyway, from all the way across the country here, that you were working,
184 hours the first 2 weeks. Worked about 23 straight days, and I've been averaging about 140 to 160 hours every 2 weeks, with maybe 1 day off in between, which has been pulled into broadcasting and other things through 321 Sportscast, which is my broadcasting venture I do down here for local sports of all different levels. Actually traveled to Coral Gables for the Little League State baseball tournament that sent actually one of the teams from my county is currently in Warner Robins for the Southeast Regional Baseball Tournament. And I actually just got back from Warner Robins for the Southeast Regional Softball Tournament. So it has been an extremely go filled 2.5 months or so for me. And then, of course, you really school ended, and there was talk that you were not going to be a teacher. Then all of a sudden,
nothing. I resigned. I turned in a letter of resignation. I went to the board and I said, I'm done. I'm going to explore some opportunities at Arizona State University. And graduation night happened. I'm at graduation and
crying.
Well, there was crying. I'm a pretty well-known teacher. Let's put it that way.
And we have many leather-bound books.
I also have many leather-bound books. My office smells of rich mahogany. I'm a pretty well-known teacher, and I like to think that my kids really like me and like having me around and like being in my class and like learning from me. And I only think that because that's what they tell me. So
it's like the family you never had.
So on graduation night, I had about 40, maybe 50 students come to me with tears in their eyes, asking me why I was leaving, where I'm going, what I'm doing, what's going on. And I told them in March.
Right.
But they would just refuse to believe that it was actually a thing that was going to happen. until graduation night when it was done. And I had turned in my letter of resignation and everything. I was no longer employed as of 2 weeks after graduation. I would have no longer been employed once I finished my stint of summer school. And the day after graduation, I had some issues. I was a little depressed about the whole situation. I wasn't really feeling the whole situation. And Tuesday, because that Monday was Memorial Day, Tuesday I went in and I talked to the principal and I said, hey, I know it's late and you've probably hired someone to replace me. But if I did want to continue teaching here, would there be a place for me? And she said, I'll make a place for you. And that's exactly what they did. I took a week, talked to everybody at the school. I talked to my professors at ASU. I talked to a couple of my other colleagues at ASU, and we discussed it. And I decided, hey, you know what? I want to continue being a teacher at Mingus Union High School. So I stayed. I went and talked to the principal, told her I was staying, got it put on the board, got rehired. And they did literally make a place for me. One teacher moved and took on a completely different teaching assignment. I took 2 of her classes. I picked up 3 history classes from another teacher who picked up part of that first teacher's assignment. And we split the load that way. And school started on Thursday. We are the end of week 1. Only 35 more weeks to go.
Yeah, so and I remember being surprised that you were thinking about it because, I mean, again, I don't live it. I have an ex who was a teacher, and I was involved as she finished school and helped her do some grading and whatnot. And I saw it somewhat close up, but I will say she had the same apparent love for teaching that you do, and the fact that your kids are so blinded by some random like of you is just telling that I'm
a good actor,
that there's something in the water down there. And I mean, it's the same attitude that got us through when we were in the Army that I think made us successful in whatever it was that we were doing. So I was happy to hear you went back. My mom was as well. She was happy for you that you were doing what you wanted, but she thought that you might miss being a teacher. It certainly has been a summer of craziness for both of us.
And I have a fantastic group of kids this year, and I'm really, really happy that I made that choice. I had a rough first 3 days of the week. This week I got made fun of quite a bit. Actually, so the guy, when I was leaving, my friend Chris Fuller, who is a baseball junkie like you and I are, and he's a diehard Cleveland everything fan. He even watches the Browns. I don't know what that's about.
So you're saying he's found a way to overcome depression and sadness and make it a part of his everyday life.
Exactly.
Gotcha.
So perfect person to give my farewell speech last year at the end of the school year, right? He did a great job. There were tears glistening in people's eyes. I texted him and let him know while he was down at a conference this summer. I texted him and let him know that I wasn't leaving, and he goes, "Damn it, I'm never speechifying you again." So this week we had to do this team building exercise where people get up and introduce themselves, but not themselves. They introduce another teacher as if they are that teacher. And so I wasn't there because I had a doctor's appointment at the VA, and you don't tell the VA you're not coming, or they schedule you for 10 years later. I had a doctor's appointment, but apparently he thought I was in the room, so he stands up and he goes, "My name's Chris Furry, and I like Jell-O shots and tattoos. And I need you to celebrate me when I leave, and I need you to celebrate me again when I come back."
Well, I mean, at least he knows you well.
I was like, he got the gist of it, right? It's pretty much spot on.
Yeah. So yeah, a lot of things happening. On top of at least a personal goal for me, I have finally found my way in front of the camera, much to some people's chagrin, mainly those who look at me. but I've been fortunate enough to been asked to come on, and then I've been asked to come back onto Spectrum Sports. Well, we have Spectrum Cable out here, and our local news network. I get a chance to go on their face-off segment and debate a topic. So I've been on for 3 segments so far. I'm back on again Monday. So that has been pretty awesome. I have spent way more money on clothes than I ever thought humanly possible at one time. But, apparently having to have slacks and a dress shirt and a jacket kind of works its way into your wallet. So that has made at least the hours I've worked, worth it. But yeah, it's been awesome. So all that said and done, we are here. We're back. We appreciate Mike Goodpasture being understanding, assuming he kind of just quit talking to us. Maybe he figured we just had, we had been Thanos snapped and then we never blipped back. I just saw the new Spider-Man in case you weren't aware, so that's hence the easy verbiage right there. But
awesome.
Which, by the way, I do want to say this before we go ahead and put the ball in play. Your students obviously share your kind of nerddom. Both are nerddom, really, when it comes to the MCU and the movies, the enjoyment of that. And do you remember what I had told you to do on your last day?
I do.
So I had told you, I said you need to get a bunch of pixie sticks and empty them into bags for every one of your students. And at the end of every class, put on a gauntlet and snap your fingers. And then give each student a bag of dust and say, that's you.
I just wanted to leave a part of myself with it.
That's right. There you go. So, but anyway, now that we all have that out of the way, we wanted to just let you guys know what was going on. Apologize for the long delay. It was not without frustration on both our parts and a lot of discussion when we could talk. We didn't really talk much this summer either, which is rare. But the times we could, of trying to find a way to keep the show alive. And yes, there was concern that we wouldn't be able to. But there was always talk of how do we make this work? And it's an ever-changing process, but we're willing to do it because we love the show. And we're happy to have you guys back along. And, we look forward to kind of getting back in the swing of things. It's kind of spring training mid-year for us, so give us a little bit of time to find our way back into it. But with that, I do know the next thing is to go ahead and put the ball into play on the show. And I mean, at this point, we're into it. We might as well go ahead and talk about the elephant in the room, the biggest move that we could have seen as a trade deadline approached, and that was that the LA Angels designated Jonathan Lucroy for assignment.
Oh, is that the big one?
Didn't they?
Well, they did. Which is, to be honest, is kind of a crappy move, right?
It really, I mean, when you get your nose busted and get concussed, and then 3 days after you're back up, you have no job.
Hey, welcome back. We're glad you're off of the injured list.
You're off the team.
Oh, by the way, we don't have room for you on our 40-man roster.
And there was, it was a I don't want to say a bad look. It was a really kind of rough way for it to go, mainly because, like you said, I mean, he comes back from injury, but the issue is that Max Stassi had been released, and they had acquired him, a catcher from, I believe he was in Houston. The odd thing for me here, really, unless you're overly concerned with your depth at catcher, which, I mean, and maybe you're really just trying to save some money, which I get it. Stassi is only owed a $500,000, but I mean, damn, the guy's hitting under 165. I mean, Lucroy's hitting 242. It's about where he's been the last couple of years. Granted, he had a great year, had a great time in Colorado hitting 310, but I mean, 240 to 260 is where he's been the last 3 or 4 seasons. He's a career 275 hitter. I mean, really the only thing that maybe kind of kicks you in the pants is his contract. So he's owed $3.35 million, but you've already paid half of it. So I don't know. I mean, to me, you're still on the hook for him, most likely on your books. You're not going to be able to get out of what you owe him. I don't – unless they think Stassi's going to be something, that's odd to me.
Yeah, it's one of those situations where there's either a reason why they don't want Lucroy around, and I can't really figure. I get being hurt is an issue, but he's not often hurt. He's a solid catcher. He's solid behind the plate anyway. We're kind of out of that era now where catchers are big time hitters. So he's 33. That's a little old for a guy who's still in the squat every day. But the one thing that I think makes the most sense is they can't trade him, and he can refuse to go to AAA. So he's the kind of guy you release
that's because of veteran status.
Right. He's the kind of guy you release. If you want to get rid of somebody, he's the guy to release because you're not on the hook you don't have to send him down to AAA and take him off the roster and do it that way because he can refuse an assignment.
Right. And this is a guy who, as a catcher, has never played over 153 games. That was his highest amount in his first All-Star year in Milwaukee. But he's only crested 100 games, I guess, 7 times out of 10 years. But you're also looking at one of them was only 103. So, it's a very kind of odd dynamic where he is, I think, in a lot of ways now, he is a veteran backup guy. He's going to become a poor man's Brian McCann, who's going to be a veteran backup for a key pitcher, kind of like what David Ross was for John Lester. He will be a key piece to relieve your number one catcher, to be there in a big moment for a pitcher because he knows his role. But, I really think that his days of being the guy, like you said, 33 years old, 142 games in 2016, 123 games in 17, 126 last year, and was on the way to crest 100 again this year, already at 74 prior to or right around the time of the horrific collision by Marisnik there. So it surprised me, I guess, because you're at the end of the contract. It is what it is, and maybe you can control Stassi for less money. He becomes arbitration eligible, and his numbers are not indicative of a high arbitration number.
Sure, right. Well, and remember, this is a guy who's had trouble finding a home in his forays into free agency anyway. So I don't want to say this is the Angels were the last stop for Jonathan Lucroy. I'm sure there are plenty of teams out there who need a good backup catcher or at least a good bullpen catcher. Not that I'm saying that needs to be the end of Jonathan Lucroy's career is to end up as a bullpen catcher, but a job's a job.
I could see him in Pittsburgh. I mean, if Cervelli is seriously saying that concussions and injuries are going to remove him from everyday catching, but you still want that leadership in your rotation with somebody back there who you trust, I could see Clint Hurdle saying, hey, let's look at Lucroy. He's from the NL Centrals where he got his start. That would make a fitting return home for him to maybe end his career.
Well, and let's not forget, I mean, that makes sense too. Pittsburgh does make sense, but let's not forget that Wilson Contreras is hurt. Like hurt. And the Cubs need a solid guy behind the dish. And if Contreras is going to be out, then Jonathan Lucroy might be a good move for them. He's, like you said, he's hitting in the mid 200s. He can still call a great game and go to Chicago. And he's got a pretty decent starting rotation to be the backstop for.
Yeah. And that would make sense. I mean, he, DFA'd on August 2nd, right about 1:00 yesterday. Central Time is when it was announced. So there is certainly, once he clears waivers, which I think is 48 or 72 hours, he does become eligible for teams to go ahead and bid on his services and try and and get him into their ball club. So, yeah, there definitely could be a spot for him this year. And with the Cubs still clawing and trying to, to get themselves into position. I mean, and that NL Central is still just an absolute smorgasbord of insanity right now, with the fact that the basement does not include the Reds. Reds are in fourth, which tells you just how poor the Pirates have been. But we'll get to standings. But it definitely would make sense for a team that needs that, because this is the time of the year when teams who need something to get them over that hurdle make it. And they make it happen. And that kind of takes us to what is, in all honesty, the actual news that we jokingly led off the show with, and that is the Astros doing what the Astros do, apparently, which is go out and get a big-name pitcher at the deadline and go, yeah, we're just going to add one more arm, and we're going to have 3 of the top 8 ERAs in the big leagues on our rotation, and nothing you can do about it.
Right. I like this move. You and I have talked about Zack Greinke for a long time. Really have. About where he fits in a rotation, sorry, go ahead.
You like it for whom?
I like it for
I think that's my question to your point you're going to make is, do you like it for both, or do you lean more one or the other? Because if you say Arizona, my only question is going to be, why the hell did you wait so long?
Well, to be honest, it's not necessarily the teams that I like it for. I like this move for Zack Greinke, because we have discussed Zack Greinke since we started this show, and where he belongs in a rotation, where he can thrive in a rotation. And I think we agree that his best years were playing behind a number one, right? Behind Clayton.
His
Clayton
personality
Kershaw.
and ego did not scream he needs to be the guy. He just he's just a guy who is effective wherever he goes, but he seemed more comfortable to just go out and do the job without all the lights on him.
Right. And I think that this is exactly going to a team like the Astros is exactly what Zack Greinke needs to sort of bring himself back into focus, right? He's going to be starting behind, probably third in that rotation behind Cole. And I think that not only playing behind 2 guys who could, one future first ballot Hall of Famer, right? And another guy who could be a number one pretty much anywhere else in the league. And then Zack Greinke.
There's already discussion the Braves need to hone in on Garrett Cole in the offseason, and we're not even, we're barely into August.
Right. That puts him in a position where all he has to do every day is go out and be Zack Greinke, not go out and be his team's ace. And when you don't have that sitting on your shoulders, when you don't have to go out and be like, well, I'm the ace, I have to win every 5 days.
Right. And you look at this, that's when he was great, was behind Sabathia, right? And I think that was when he was in Milwaukee, was when CC had come over from Cleveland, and really it was the CC and Prince Fielder show. And he was just kind of this, man, this guy's really good, but he's so quiet and he's kind of odd. And, who the hell is Zack Greinke? Then he goes to Kansas City, where, man, they got Greinke, and it was, okay, but you're still the Royals, and all these lights are on him. And granted, it's Kansas City, but still, it's an area where they've had postseason success. Granted, it was the George Brett days, but it was there, and they're still watching. And then, like you said, goes to LA, and it's, oh man, I could kind of just sit back. LA fans are rabid. It's a huge market, but is the media as against them in bad times as they are in New York? Of course not. And then he makes a chance, then he gets a chance to go to Arizona, which I believe we began the show, I think, is when he was making the consideration of where to move. And that was, man, it was so odd how, Corbin started to come up and Robbie Ray began to come up. And all these big names that have moved around still aren't number ones, but there was a good cast around him. But again, it was Paul Goldschmidt's team, right, with Greinke as the face of the rotation. And he's just not a guy who wants the microphones in his face when there are pitching woes. Go ask Kershaw, go ask Verlander. Verlander's happy to be outspoken. It's one of the things that works, for him and for that ball club. And then Garrett Cole can kind of be the young gun, and Greinke's just a guy who, hey, I do my job quietly and make my money.
And let's not forget that the wealth of experience that Justin Verlander brings to that clubhouse, and especially to that pitching that pitching rotation, playing behind a guy like Clayton Kershaw, playing behind a guy like Justin Verlander is going to make Zack Greinke a better ball player. Right. Not just because he doesn't have to worry about being the guy, but also because he's going to have this guy in Justin Verlander who just is a wealth of knowledge and information and experience.
And a guy who successfully kind of repurposed and retooled himself at an age where he should be declining. This is the age where we began to look sideways at Roger Clemens, because how are you still doing this and it's on the up and up? And yet there's no question, when you look at Verlander, he's the same size, same length that he was when he was, back in 2012 and 13 throwing no-hitters with the Tigers.
And we're talking about Verlander this way 3 years after we seriously questioned on this show whether or not I seriously questioned on this show whether or not he was going to be able to turn it around and make a comeback like that.
I said, don't steal one of the – I remember this. That was one of the few arguments that I have undoubtedly won. There are others we can dispute. I undoubtedly had that one right. Don't take it from me now.
Fair enough.
But you're exactly right. You're dead on. Is the fact of, and it makes me wonder, because Greinke has filthy stuff, but having never really been in a clubhouse in that way, obviously, it makes you wonder: do guys stop offering the number one advice? Hey, you're the number one. And it's already been, documented of, that he has some kind of, I think it's a social anxiety. I think it's anxiety, some kind of social disorder that obviously makes him uncomfortable in some regards, which in a sense, that also makes him kind of who he is. And he's found a way to channel that into a positivity, which is a huge, sign. I respect the heck out of that, and I think it's great for those that suffer from the same thing that he does. But is he a guy who flourishes better in an area where he is still being challenged and pushed? And that's what I think he is. I think he likes the push, because he can kind of look at what this number one guy is doing and say, you know what, what are you doing that's effective? Let me add that. But there is no question of, well, man, why'd you try this? Why'd you try that? It's just, look at how effective he is being. Look at this number two or number three guy and just how dominant he is at that position.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think one of the things that Zack Greinke is going to get out of this is twofold. One, he's going to watch firsthand the ways in which he can become more like the person that he was prior to heading to the Diamondbacks, right? When everybody in the league was like, hey, maybe this guy could be a number one, and then he became one, and everybody was like, hey, this guy's not a number one. But if he can go back to being that Greinke again, right? And he has a roadmap for that now. And also, there is a legitimate opportunity, even more so than I think he had in his time in LA, for him to end up on a World Series roster.
Sure. And let's keep it, let's be totally honest and fair here. The only reason he's not a number one is personality. And that's no slight. That is in no way a slight against him. He is a guy who just, he has the personality of, I can go out there and I can do everything that my job is to do, but he doesn't need to be the killer. Right? He's the guy that you can turn to once the table is set. All right, number one's out there. We got our win. Hey, get us a W. And that sounds the same thing as, hey, go get us a W. But as the number one, you are setting the table. You are setting the tone. And he is not that guy. And again, I do not begrudge that. I don't think, man, that's terrible. I think it's great that he embraces who he is. And it shows you that some teams just were so hell-bent on getting him. And granted, the money that he commands requires you to put him in that spot.
Right.
And that's kind of the difficulty is he does not seem the guy who has the mental focus of being a number one. He has the mental focus of being a top-notch pitcher, a top 10 pitcher. And we said this on the show before. Every team does not have an ace. Every team has a number one.
Right.
But there is not an ace pitcher on every team. Greinke has the ability to be an ace. And right now, Houston has at least two. You can raise your arguments about Garrett Cole. He's had struggles. We've seen ups and downs from him. But Verlander and Greinke are aces. There is no denying it.
Absolutely.
And that is, I think, the mentality of you pay him as an ace, but you're paying him as an ace number one. And he is at that oddity where he is an ace, but does not want to be a number one. And you get stuck in the fold of, well, he needs to get paid based on the numbers, but he doesn't want the same slot that necessitates that pay value.
Right. Exactly. But he's not the only big trade that happened right there at the end of the trade deadline. There's another guy who you and I have talked about being better when he doesn't have to be the man, who got traded. And again, I think that this is another move that I like.
And it was by far the smartest of all because he called his wife first.
Right. Yes. Called his wife. So the San Francisco Giants informed Mark Melancon just a couple of hours before the deadline. 2 hours, I think, in fact, before the deadline. Deadline's 4 p.m.
Yep.
They informed him around 2 p.m. and said, hey, we're talking about a possibility of making a move to send you to Atlanta. And we understand that you have a full no trade. They're willing to pick up your entire contract. How do you feel about that? And Mark goes, I'm going to need to call my wife real quick and make sure that that's okay. And, of course, when you're talking about going to a place like Atlanta, who is on the upswing, right? Sure, the Giants are sort of
swinging.
In the feast.
They're swinging.
Right? They're in the feast portion of the feast and famine life that is baseball right now, but it's a second-half push. We'll see how far that gets them.
Hey, they're in second place in the West at 55-55.
Right. Yes. They sure are.
16 games out of first.
Yes, but only 3.5 games. Only 3.5 games out of a wild card, which tells you what the rest of
the key. Absolutely
tells you what the rest of the National League is doing, and by that I mean the rest of the National League's not doing great. The number one team in the Central right now has 3 more wins than the San Francisco Giants. So they're making a push, and we'll see how that works out. But the reality is that the Atlanta Braves are on an upswing. What looks to be an upswing for quite a while, at least a few seasons. They are young, they are talented, they are hungry, and they are getting younger and more talented and more hungry every day. Melanson doesn't make them younger, but it sure adds to that pool of talent, especially late reliever talent. I think it's a great move.
And I was really surprised by the lack of overall pitching movement that we saw. Of course, Brian Cashman is getting blasted for his lack of movement. Again, there are, I think 16 guys on the IL right now for the Yankees, so that's a different thing. Melanson is not the guy the Giants signed. Or I'm sorry, I should rephrase that. He is not the guy the Giants thought they were going to sign. They signed him coming off of a 1.64 ERA year in 2016. His third All-Star appearance that year. Obviously pitched in Pittsburgh, moved over to the Nationals when they made that, trying to make a push for the playoffs. He comes into San Fran. I remember it because you happened to be at the opening game that year, was in Arizona. He blew the save. And we remember saying, man, they're going to get this. This is great for them, that they've kind of been waiting for this. The injuries begin to pile up. I believe he had Tommy John surgery. You'll correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm fairly certain I remember a pretty hefty surgery for him. We saw a 4.5 ERA in 2017. He's now working in the mid-threes. He is not the same, low to mid-ones guy that we saw when he was younger. But guess what? He's 34.
Right.
And even at a 3.5 ERA, he's a 4-2 record, and he's already pitched in 46 1/3 innings, which is the most that he has pitched in since 2016 when he went 71. We saw just so many injuries just beleaguer him and knock him out of a couple.
And let's keep in mind that he is coming back from major surgery as well. So you factor all of those things in. It looks like he's one of the 80%, right? That he's going to be able to make a return that is useful and legitimate to late inning relief.
Right.
I don't know that he's ever going to be that closer guy again, right? But setup guy, sure. Seventh inning guy, absolutely. And I think he's going to thrive in that role. I think he really, really is. I think he needs to be in a place, just like Greinke needs to be in a place where he is not the man, right? He's not the closer. And the Braves don't need him to be.
Yeah, it's going to be – it will certainly be interesting, as far as how that works. And we have seen that begin to happen more with was it Zach Johnson, I believe from Baltimore. So right now you have Shane Green. You're looking at a guy who a 1.18 ERA, 22 saves for the Braves, a 0.87 WHIP. So yeah, you have this 30-year-old guy who right now is your closer. But the good thing is, if God forbid he gets the yips,
right,
you have someone who you can at least trust to get in there and hopefully do something. Hey, look, and we saw this happen with Mark Wohlers back in the day. The guy was, really, he was kind of the Chapman of the 90s, a 99, 100-mile-an-hour hard thrower of the baseball who somehow, to this day, I still, and it might be out there, he just lost it. He just lost the ability to command the baseball, then lost confidence in his ability to figure out how to get back to commanding the baseball, and his career just became shambles. And he was, I used to love watching that guy pitch as a kid.
Right.
Really, he was probably, as far as for just hard throwing and excitement as someone who watched him, he was probably your Dennis Eckersley for me. I didn't get a chance to see Eck in his prime. I caught Wohlers in the mid-'90s. That was kind of my childhood. So I do like the move. They pick up all of his contract. It works out well for San Francisco. I'm surprised that more moves didn't happen. I think that there weren't as many moves as I expected anyway, but I feel like San Fran got caught up in this. Well, we're in contention, but what are you really in contention for? Not a damn thing.
Right.
Nothing. So, if you had offers for for a belt or for a Crawford or a Panic
Or a Buck Garner,
which that one really surprised me, and it sounded like the offers just kind of fell through.
Well, and he publicly said that he would refuse. He has a full no trade too, and he publicly said that he would refuse a trade. That he wants to pitch for the Giants. It hurts the Giants for him to say that and to
right,
because he's going into free agency, and now the Giants are in a position where he refuses to allow them to get anything back for him.
Right.
If he decides to leave.
Unless his idea is to stay and take the money that allows him to stay, I don't know. And that's something that we'll see.
I'm going to be honest with you. I don't feel comfortable with the idea that the Giants might actually offer him a contract.
Yeah, it's tough because he is kind of the guy who you think of as a lifetimer, and it's so hard to find lifers these days. But he and Posey were kind of just that 1-2. You expected it every 5 days to have them. I get it from his perspective, but it certainly does, hurt them in the fact of, hey, you know what? If you want to stay and play for him, I mean, look at what. Granted, there wasn't the no trade, but look at what the Yankees did with Chapman, right? Hey, we'll see you back in a couple of months. You get what you can for him. He goes out, does his thing. You bring him back into the fold if you're really that comfortable.
Right.
Right. So I've been chomping at the bit to get into this topic, okay? And I have brought it up, unfortunately, with Orlando. The push is now on, at least, to try and get the Rays to move in here because, well, and again, this is going to happen as we do the show and kind of get back into it. What the hell is up with an idea of a Tampa Bay Montreal split season?
Honestly, I think what is up with it is the people of Montreal want baseball. The people of Tampa and its surrounding areas obviously don't want baseball.
And they're locked into a deal for the next 10 years.
Right. And Tampa owns them. So I don't like the idea. I think it's a crappy idea. I think it's terrible. I think this is going to be bad for fans. It's going to be bad for players.
Yeah.
Because sure, Montreal and Tampa, I believe, share a time zone.
They do.
But you're talking about a team that is going to do a whole lot more traveling, except, and this is actually interesting, the only time they won't do more traveling is when they're playing in their own division. They'll actually do less travel at that point, which could be good for them. But when you're talking about going from Montreal to LA, right, to play the Angels or something, that's just, it feels different.
What do you call
them? Montreal Bay.
I was going to go with the Canadian Rays, but instead of the AY and the AD, it was going to be EH.
A.
Yeah.
Who's your team? The Rays.
Yeah, exactly.
Got it.
It just – I get that change is abounding in baseball right now, but that is just makes no logistical sense.
It makes no financial sense either. I mean, it's going to be expensive. it's going to be as expensive as not having people show up every day in Tampa Bay.
Right. I mean, because who honestly wants to have to change out all their 33-ounce bats for Canadian metric weighted bats? I mean, just the price alone on the trees and the lumber makes no sense.
You're an idiot.
What?
You're an idiot. That's not how any of this works. How long's that bat, eh? 33 inches. Yeah, what's that in normal?
Yeah, we're gonna go with about 100 centimeters or 300 centimeters, whatever it is.
How many centimeters is that?
Yeah, but all right. So we say that obviously in jest. Now, the idea of changes certainly takes us into the next topic, which I have been dying to talk about, and I mentioned all that because unfortunately we're not really a huge baseball market in Orlando yet. I would love for the Rays to come here, but we are very much a kind of a soccer oriented with Orlando City, and then football, basketball, and Magic, that kind of thing. So when they say, "Hey, what do you want to talk about?" Baseball. They say, "Okay, just show up on time, and we'll give you a topic when you get here." Okay, sounds good. It's just, I mean, that's just kind of how I'm wired. I love talking baseball, but so finally the rule changes in the Atlantic League are here. The TrackMan system, the robot umpire.
The second half
is here.
Right.
And it is
hilarious.
Yeah. It's sort of ish working. I saw a stat, and I'm not sure to the exact extent that it was, but I think it was something around 25 to 30% of borderline pitches it misses. They actually track it to the box, and actually looking at what's there in real time. You go back afterwards and look, and it's missing a lot of the ones that catch the corner. About half the ball on the corner or just half off, and it's missing them. And I believe it was Rob Manfred who was asked about finally being able to bring in the robot umpire to Major League Baseball, and the answer was, well, at the moment, our system can still not definitively differentiate between the ball and the barrel of the bat in the last 10 feet. So right now, our human umpires are much more accurate than the machinery.
Sure. I really feel like that's something we've pointed out in the past.
Yeah. I get it, and it's hard to, that TrackMan is a savage with those cameras. It really, it's a savage system, and it takes savage hitters in that box to make contact with the ball.
Well, they've got to be savages in the box, otherwise, it just doesn't work. And
best sound since the Terry Collins video, I have to agree.
Everyone knows that Boone's guys are savages in the box.
That was pretty awesome. That was great. So, all right. So here is what is officially in play. First one. A pitcher, regardless of throwing arm, is required to step off the rubber in order to attempt to pick off.
Oh, cool. Now I know if I'm getting picked off or not.
Right. Already, they have said that stolen bases are skyrocketing in the Atlantic League, especially for lefties who have been used to not having that. And now you're getting balks because, of course, you're going to do what you've habitually done for 25 years, 30 years, however long you've been pitching, and now it's a balk. So we have that in play. Head scratcher number one. Head scratcher number two. One foul bunt is permitted with 2 strikes before a strikeout is called. So 0-2, you bunt it foul, still 0-2, bunt it foul again, now you're done. If you can't get it down with the first 2, why am I giving you a free one?
Yeah.
That to me, if you're doing these changes to make the game faster, that's counterintuitive.
Yep.
Batters may steal first base on any pitch not caught in flight. Batter can be thrown out if he attempts to run. First off, I don't know if it doesn't explain here if the out is a force out or a tag required. That I'm not sure of. The other thing I would want to know is, what if a guy kind of stutters? Oh, I'm thinking, no, I'm not going to go.
I mean,
is it
once
he can't leave the confines of the box?
Right. Once he steps out of the box, he's committed, right?
1 or 2 feet.
That makes the most sense.
1 or 2 feet.
1 foot. You take a step out of the box on a dropped pitch, and I got to think you're running.
Right.
Catcher grabs the ball and tags him, he's out.
Yeah. So it's, so that one, and even Wally Bachman has come out saying, yeah, our guys are not really affecting this. The guys still are not. I mean, this is really, we are changing the fabric of the game, I think, more than some wanted. Some are saying, oh, it's kind of cool to watch. Okay, but do you want to see guys stealing first in the big leagues? First off, how many times does the ball get away from the catcher that far? It just seems like it's a good way to cause an issue more than prevent an issue.
Right.
I love this one. The check swing rule made more batter friendly.
Doesn't even make sense.
And doesn't even explain how. Because everyone says, well, did the barrel break the plane? Did his wrist break? Did the barrel cross the – no, there is no dictionary rule book definition of a check swing. Did the batter make an attempt to offer at the pitch? Yes or no? Yes, he went. No, he didn't. That is it. It is the most hilarious thing to hear most announcers say, because what you're looking for doesn't really exist.
Right.
It's complete judgment. So what are we looking for now? Did the barrel touch the batter's opposite shoulder? Yes. Okay, he swung.
Right.
I mean, I would love for them to actually come out and make a definitive explanation. What are you telling your umpires? I mean, these guys are, guys who've gone to umpire school. The ALPB, the Northwoods League, these are really well-respected independent leagues, like the Cape Cod League, right? I mean, this is where a lot of guys go, kind of get scouted, get found when they're not in college. So the umpires doing these are also, I mean, they're good. They either got released, whatever it is, or maybe they didn't get picked up on their first iteration of umpire school. They got placed here and they go back to umpires. I mean, it's legitimately that is the caliber of guys you have here who have been to school, who have gone through the training, are good at what they do. So we have these 4, and now we get this, okay? We get the home plate umpire assisted by a radar tracking system in the zone. Okay, we knew it was coming.
Well, these next ones all started at the beginning of the season. That's been there for a while.
Right.
And we've already seen it bite hitters in the butt. I mean, like we said it would. Those low diving balls that pass through the zone.
Well, the second game where the TrackMan was put into place, they already had Frank Viola got ejected arguing because so here's the weirdness of it. Okay, so we talk about that it's the home plate umpire is assisted. So the way the rule was created is the home plate umpire still has the judiciary control to overrule the system. So if he deems there to be an egregious miss, a ball is 4 inches outside, called a strike, he can call it a ball. In the first time they actually brought the TrackMan and it's being used by an Apple AirPod in the ear, in the 4th inning, the system failed. It went down. And the umpire was calling it as a normal game. So it still requires the umpire to be locked in. Obviously, you still have your check swings, balls in the dirt, that kind of thing, foul tips, etc. But yeah, he was ejected because he didn't overrule a pitch that Viola thought was needed to be overruled. But again, you're still putting judgment of balls and strikes on the umpires who you are currently actively trying to remove that from their responsibilities. It's just, and I get you're trying this out, but I find the irony to be very, very thick right there.
Yes, I I agree. It bothers me. The whole situation bothers me with this radar tracking system. And it's not because I'm anti-technology. It's not because I think that it's ruining the game or whatever, or taking out the human element. What bothers me is that technology is fallible. Just like you said, the system went down at the beginning of the game. So what if the league had decided, okay, the home plate umpire is no longer allowed to decide for himself balls and strikes. He has to go with the mechanical system. The system goes down. Now what? You have nothing in place. Rules is written to allow the game to proceed without that mechanical system.
Well, and I'll take it a step further. If the system goes down, okay, hey, call time, inform both managers. The system is currently down. The umpire will be arbitrating balls and strikes. Great. But let me ask you this, and I'll take it a step further as an umpire. What happens when you begin to make this so commonplace? And as a non-commissioned officer in the U.S. Army, you'll appreciate this. How many lieutenants are dumb as a box of rocks reading a map because they're used to a GPS?
All of them.
Okay. So what's going to happen when all of a sudden all these umpires are not going – they're going to be trained in calling balls and strikes because a lot of the umpires that go to umpire school are doing it for lower level ball, high school, college, where they're not necessarily using this yet, right? We can expect SEC, ACC, big college conferences to eventually bring it in. If the NCAA does across the board, okay. But what's going to happen when these guys go through minor league baseball and are not consistently calling pitches? Then when you are thrust into the requirement to take over that role, you haven't been doing that daily. You're tracking it, but you're tracking it just because you're back there. And then what happens? Oh, hey, okay, well, I haven't actually called a pitch in 2 years, so I'll do my best. Then what?
Right. Well, and not only that, but what if, and I'll take this even another step further. What if it's not 2 years? What if it's 5 years or 6 years, right? And now the requirement for accuracy is gone, right? And now maybe a major league umpire has never called a game. Because if they're doing it in Major League Baseball, they're going to be doing it in the minors too.
Right.
Maybe he hasn't called a game since he was a high school umpire. Then what? Then the system breaks. Then what?
Yeah.
I don't even know how to call a game.
I mean,
I can't see a 95, 98 mile an hour pitch, and not well enough to call a ball a strike because I don't do it every day.
And I know that you can roll your eyes at this, but seriously, stop for a second. When is the last could you honestly pick up a random McNally map right now and get from point A to point B? It would take me a while. Just following, okay. But we're used to things making our lives easier, and then all of a sudden, oh, yeah, If somebody said, hey, can you call Chris? Yeah, sure. I find your name. What's his number? I don't know.
Yeah. I used to know your number when I was in the Army because I didn't have a smartphone.
Right.
I knew your number when we were roommates because I didn't have a smartphone. I didn't have a phone at all, which is why I knew your number because I used yours.
Right.
But I knew your number because I needed to.
Right.
Now I have a smartphone. You have the same phone number.
Yeah.
I don't know your phone number.
I just tell Siri to call you, and whatever name you have made up for me, which is not suitable for the show, I'm sure. It's who she calls or whatever it might be. So again, I know that this sounds so over the top, but step back for a second and realize that in reality, it probably is not that far-fetched and over the top as you might want to believe. On top of this, no mound visits permitted by players or coaches other than pitching changes and medical visits. Not a fan, but whatever. Okay, you want to move the game along. Okay, I think putting a cap on visits has been better than banning them completely. This one sounds familiar. Pitchers must face a minimum of 3 batters or reach the end of an inning unless they become injured.
Genius.
Love it. Think it's
Absolute genius.
Needs to be implemented in the big leagues. Increase the size of bases from 15 square inches to 18. You know what? I like it because it's giving you more room to go to. Again, the base is still in fair territory. You're not going to have the safety bag as you do on county ball fields. There's always going to be the question about running lane interference, yada, yada, yada. But giving a bit more room to work, I think it protects especially pitchers who are trying to find the base, and you don't want to have another Tim Hudson getting his ankle snapped by Eric Young Jr. completely by accident because EY is stretching and Huddy's trying to get the out, and Cleat meets bone and Cleat wins.
Right.
And Huddy said, "Hey, dude, it's not your fault. It's baseball. We're good." And then time between innings and pitching changes reduced from 205 to 145. I love that. I think the inning break for commercials is a waste. Is it absolutely? It makes me incredulous that you are not already warm. Get warm, come up, throw your 5 or 8 pitches, make sure your landing spot is good on the hill, and let's go to work. Why do we need to have 2.5 minutes separating? It was an absolute waste. So I like that. So that is kind of the big things so far. Again, right now, and I come. It's not even as an umpire. I don't care. You want to run the track thing? Go for it. Cool. But in the end, what are you going to end up sacrificing for the game if it fails? What if a lightning strike hits nearby, damages something? What if something hits the camera? What if something, whatever it could be? We've seen it happen. What if?
I mean, and anything can happen. I mean, any of those things is a possibility. That we've railed against this radar tracking electronic strike zone thing for a long time. Eventually, you and I are going to be on the old man side of history on this. There's nothing we can do about it.
I'm not even against it. I just think that what you're sacrificing is going to, it will eventually bite you.
Yes.
I hope I'm here to watch it bite you. And I get what they want to do. I get why you want perfection. You want the game decided by what the rule book dictates. But when you're that catcher who can work that outside pitch that's an inch or two off the plate, you want the same thing.
Right.
But I already see the writing on the wall of you're looking right now for happiness. You don't have a contingency in place. Because I'm not going to be calling Teddy Barrett when he's 85. Hey, Ted, can you fly in? We're going to halt the game for a bit. Do you mind flying in here and getting back behind the plate for a few?
Right, exactly. Here comes 90-year-old Teddy Barrett.
Right.
Oh, it finally failed, did it? Oh, here I am
on a walker. That just I don't know. It just makes me
comes out and he's like, you kids get off my lawn."
That's right.
Oh, this is the stadium. Oh, okay, hold on, I'll be out there in a minute.
But lastly, before we get to
that was my Joe West impersonation, by the way. I'm just saying.
Oh, he sounded kind of more British than country, but okay.
No, that was old man.
Okay. It sounded a bit. There was definitely some Brit in there, though.
Yeah, it could have been.
Absolutely. And lastly, before we get into the standings and as we kind of touch on the final part of the show, our heartfelt condolences from the show, from everybody at the network, to Tyler Skaggs' family and his untimely and tragic passing of the LA Angels. And I don't know, did you see after the no-hitter Mike Trout's discussion, about how they had scored something like it was, they scored a certain number of runs in the first inning, and they ended up with this, and it was his birthday, whatever it was, and I mean, there were so many kind of little. And again, in those tragic moments, you can make a lot of things represent stuff to you, but that's part of the healing process, and the fact that it was there for those guys, was great.
I'll tell you this much: that first game, that both the Angels pitcher, I can't remember his name, the one who threw that eephus curveball.
Yeah.
Used to throw, throws that as a sort of a
homage.
Yeah, an homage to,
which I thought was a strike. First off,
it was a strike. That's what I'm getting at. There was
okay.
a lot of class acts in that entire sequence. That ball was absolutely a strike. There was absolutely no way that hitter was ever going to offer at it, and because the batter, the catcher, and the umpire all knew that it was an homage, the batter didn't offer, and the umpire didn't call it a strike, though it was, which is a class act by pitcher, catcher, batter, umpire, everyone involved. Absolute class act.
And as we talk about this at 9:50 on a Sunday night, a combined no-hit bid of the Astros versus the Mariners is currently intact through 8 innings. So ironic as that comes, but certainly, a heavy heart and a lot of tragedy surrounds that team in the last decade and a half or so. So again, our condolences to them. But as we do get ready to wrap the show, let's go ahead and take a look at the standings. And as it sits right now, the third best team in baseball leads the AL East, the New York Yankees, at 70-39. The Savages that they are, and as we make the joke about it, they interviewed Boone after the game, and he said, Brennan handled himself very well. I didn't, but he said I called him.
You don't say.
Yeah, I apologize for my actions. I knew it. I knew as soon as it happened, I hit him my cap. It's the second time that happened. It happened to Nick Lentz. He hit Nick Lentz with the brim of his ball cap before as well. But he said, I told Brennan, I said you had a good game, and I said one of these days we're going to have a chance to look back on this and laugh. And I believe that he ended up with like a 97.5% accuracy rating. So, obviously if Boone wanted to tighten it up, he certainly did. But the Yankees sit on top. The Rays 63-48 in their 8 games back, which is just kind of mind-boggling. The Boston Red Sox, losers of now 6 straight today. They're 4.5 games out of the wild card, 12.5 out of first. This has just been a year where nothing has gone right. No matter however they try to right the ship, elite keeps popping up. It's just not. They're not going to repeat. It's not their year. It doesn't make a lot of sense. It's really odd. The Blue Jays and the Orioles round out the bottom of that division. The Twins still on top, 67-42, 3 games over the Indians, who also have a wild card berth. They are 2 games behind, or 2 games up on the nearest wild card team, and the Rays hold the other wild card. But you're looking at the White Sox in third, the Royals and the Tigers, and then the AL West, it's the Astros and everybody else. The Mariners have found themselves at the bottom of the heap. Sorry, Jason. The A's, a half game out of the wild card, they're still pushing, which is interesting. This team just refuses to die. And I mentioned this to you. So I guess this guy had been seen and he had been working. He had some wrist surgery. But this guy gets signed by the Oakland A's to a minor league deal after throwing 94, 95, and 96 miles per hour at one of those check my speed things at Coors Field, of all places. The A's are playing the Rockies in Colorado. the A's end up signing this guy, but again, he's pitching from a flat surface with a like a 1 or 2 step kind of move forward. So he's gaining a little bit of momentum. But from what it does sound like, though, he does have the ability to change speeds and change movement. So, hey, maybe. Who the hell knows? So as it sits currently, like I said, the Yankees, Twins, Astros with the Tampa Bay Rays and the Cleveland Indians as the 2 wild card teams as it currently sits in the American League standings. Chris, where are we at in the National League?
Well, in the East, back over on your side of the country, yeah, obviously the National League is not quite winning games at the same clip that the American League is. You have the Atlanta Braves on top. I think that you and I, neither of us are really surprised by that. You might be considering you had picked Washington to take that division. Looks like they're in a good place to possibly make a push to do that. They're 6 games back.
I am blown away. I thought that Davey Martinez should have been fired long ago, and yet here they sit with a blank line in that wild card column. I can't believe it.
Yeah, I honestly really can't believe it either.
So let me ask you this as you move on. Hotter seat now, Davey Martinez or and I completely blanked, or Phillies skipper, and help me out on the name as I'm completely blanking on his name.
Wow. Yeah, no, you got me too. I don't know.
Okay, good times. It's late.
It is, yeah. And we're rusty.
Gabe Kapler.
Gabe Kapler, that's the one. No, I think he's still on the hot seat. I don't think Kapler's on the hot seat yet. Remember, Kapler came into a team that was in massive need of a rebuild, and what they did instead was like, let's try to win now. And they paid a bunch of money for all these guys.
Yeah, that Harper thing is working out swimmingly.
Well, not to mention the fact that they had to obviously get stock in coconut oil. I think that the New York Mets are right where we expected them to be a few games ahead of the Miami Marlins, who are at the bottom of that division, and I don't think anyone is surprised by that.
Yeah, and how about the Mets not really making a ton of moves, which I think we kind of expected. You know, I mean, I thought there was going to be somebody.
Especially with the talk from this new general manager / talent acquisition personnel. I expected them to do something at the break that was either going to be cement this win now attitude that you said you had at the beginning of the season, or admit where you are, dish some of these guys that you can still get a lot of pieces back for, and go into rebuild.
Which was the expectation with Syndergaard. It never happened, never materialized. I was caught off a bit surprised. I'm not going to lie.
You're 3 games below 500 right now, and you have absolutely, well, I won't say absolutely, but you have almost no hope of climbing on top of this division. It's just, I don't think it's going to happen.
I mean, you're 5 back of the wild card, and you're looking up at teams like Philly, like Washington, like Milwaukee, the Cubs, hell, even the Giants and the Diamondbacks. So, there are definitely some teams out there that I just don't think New York has the consistency behind them to make a run.
Right. In the Central, we have St. Louis on top of the Central at 58 wins. I honestly thought this Central division was going to be better. I thought it was going to be a better division this year. The Cubs were looking like they were come out swinging again. I know they've had their issues. They've had some injuries. They've had off the field issues that we don't need to get into again. But besides the Cubs, I thought the Milwaukee Brewers were going to be a better team. The Milwaukee Brewers are 2 games over 500 right now. They're 2.5 games out of the wild card and only 3 games out of the top of this division. But the top of this division right now is 58 wins.
Especially with the way that Yelich was swinging the stick early. It's just, I don't know, man. You're right. I mean, I almost want to say, is it because, you've got these teams slugging it out head-to-head so much But, I mean, really, it just feels like nobody has been able to kind of grab the division and say, this is mine. It's there's just nobody really able to get a stranglehold on what we thought was going to be really a runaway for somebody.
And the thing is that extends nearly to the entire division. I mean, 10 games separates first from worst, and only 6.5 games separate the top 4 teams.
Yeah, and who thought that the Pirates were gonna go to where they are? I mean, 2-8 in their last 10. It's just it's
and especially there was flashes of brilliance and things maybe to be excited about at the end of last season, the beginning of this season. You really thought that Starling Marte was going to pick it up and
Chris Archer,
right? Chris Archer going over there, but you really thought that Marte and Archer were really going to be like the face of the rotation and then the face of the franchise,
right?
And it hasn't materialized in the way that I think you or I felt that it should have. Cincinnati, they made a whole bunch of moves in the offseason. I thought they were going to be a better team.
They made a whole bunch of moves the last week. I mean, Puig goes to Cleveland. I mean, come on. Puig came out and fought guys when he wasn't even a part of the damn team.
That's right. Was 3 or 4 minutes after he was traded or after his trade was announced?
15 minutes after he was traded. He's out there fighting. But, Trevor Bauer got traded. He goes to Cincinnati, so he stays in Ohio. I mean, it's just Scooter Gennett, I believe, didn't.
We got Scooter Gennett in the Milan.
Yeah, I say Gennett went to San Francisco. So
he's actually playing. He's actually playing second base tonight for the San Francisco Giants.
Which I think tells us that they're a bit further away than they wanted to admit beginning of the year. But I don't know, man. I like this sounds really dumb, but I love the self-awareness the Reds have. I think that will prove fruitful for them sooner rather than, say, what the Mets are trying to do.
Right. I'm also – I think the Trevor Bauer move is a good one. Do we see what Trevor Bauer, by the way, impressed the hell out of me.
Well, I mean, I wonder, do you think that he knew he was being traded, so he went ahead and threw the ball from Progressive Field over towards the Great American Ballpark? Hey, I'm just going to go ahead and put a ball there now for me, so I have something I'm kind of used to when I get there.
I'm going to tell you right now, he almost got it to the Great American Ballpark from where he was on the mound. Guy threw the ball over the center field wall from the mound. That's got to be 360, 340 feet.
And I got suspended for it.
Well, of course he did. That's horrible sportsmanship, and you should never do something like that.
But I mean, come on. If look, let's just look at how unfair this is, right? You throw it from the mound to the stands, you get suspended. You throw it from the stands to the mound, you get a contract.
Fair, but only if you break your arm first.
And you're in Chicago.
And you're 12. But moving on, the National League West.
We just the absolute hell out of ourselves, by the way.
Nobody knows what we just talked about. Everybody's like, what is is that a movie? A TV show?
Rookie of the Year, people, look it up.
Heading out to my neck of the woods, the National League West, the LA Dodgers have a firm grip on the National League West.
Let's not over-exaggerate this, okay? I mean, firm grip?
Yes.
Let's not overdo it.
They're 16 games in command of that division.
Okay, firm grip it is.
The Giants are right behind them. Well, they're not right behind them, but they're behind them. At number 2.
Numerically, as far as spot goes, they're right behind them.
However, the Dodgers have 72 wins and 40 losses, and the Giants are playing 500 baseball at 55 and 55. 3.5 games out of the wild card, had a really, really hot start to the second half. It was really looking good. It's still looking pretty good, except
I'm just saying, you would have taken 500 Giants baseball when the season began.
Oh, yes. Yes.
I mean,
absolutely, I would have. Behind them, and not far behind them, and just a game behind them, is the Arizona Diamondbacks, who are also only a couple of games out of that National League wild card, that second wild card spot. The interesting one to me is that San Diego and Colorado have the same number of wins. I thought Colorado was going to be doing better. I think you thought Colorado was going to be doing better.
Yeah.
Much better, considering I think you did you not pick them to take this division this year?
I did. I really thought the Dodgers did not have Hyunjin Ryu has been an absolute force for that ball club.
Absolutely.
I did not see this coming at all.
Well, I don't think anybody did because he was so hot and cold. He was tepid last season.
Did you just call Hyunjin Ryu the Katy Perry of baseball?
I did. Yes, I did. He's the Katy Perry of baseball. He's hot. He's cold. He's in. He's out. He's up. He's down. He doesn't know what he's doing.
It's a lot of prepositions.
It is. And I haven't used an entire prepositional phrase yet, and the English teacher part of my mind is screaming at me.
Around the horn. There you go.
But Colorado and San Diego are rounding out the bottom of that division, both with 51 wins. Colorado in last place by virtue of an extra loss. They are currently on top of the San Francisco Giants 5-4 in the fifth inning, but that's not enough to get them out of the basement.
Yeah, it's the West really is. The Dodgers right now are seething because had it really not been for this Greinke move, I think that they were good enough to get past the Yankees in a 7-game series. 6 games, maybe 7. Now all of a sudden the Astros are in the mix, and the only thing that you can hope for is that ALCS thankfully is a 7-game set, and that Houston and New York just pummel the ever-living hell out of each other until they face what should be the Dodgers in the World Series.
Yeah.
I mean, this is the worst. This is the nightmare scenario for LA.
Well, yes.
Because the window is now. It has to happen.
It has to
now.
It has to. And unfortunately, it's the same window for the Yankees. It has to happen. They're younger, but I don't know how long they can handle those bats. The reason I say it has to happen now is I know that the Yankees are willing to spend money, but they are not going to be able to spend Aaron Judge,
Sure.
Gary Sanchez, and all those other guys that are on that roster who are coming out of these rookie deals and into real money. They're not going to be able to spend that kind of cash.
I get it. The only thing I will say is that look at where they are right now and the amount of injuries that have, absolutely destroyed this roster. And you're doing this right now with, a dozen guys at a time on the injured list. Imagine what happens if this team is healthy. That's a scary thought. Healthy, and you can get a couple of young arms. If they manage to pull, my God, if Garrett Cole goes to New York in the offseason as a free agent,
Yeah.
What happened? They are going to make the move for rotational help. Obviously, this is, Sabathia will be gone. Severino should be back, hopefully healthy. This is a team that is doing, a stupid amount of winning and having a great amount of success when they should be struggling more than they are.
I think that one of the things that is holding that team back other than injuries is those bats swing, and more often than not, they miss.
But when they don't,
it goes
Stanton
a long...
hasn't even really been in this year.
Yeah.
So, you think of the pop that they don't have. They may swing and miss, but they also right now have holes in the lineup that you can try and work around guys, and they're still putting up 70 wins. This is a scary team for the next 3 or 4 years. The Dodgers are the window has stayed open. The spring is beginning to fail. It's starting to slide down. And the Astros have have managed to go ahead and compile enough assets that they might just be a thorn in everybody's side for the next half decade.
Yeah, I think so. And that's not the case. That is not the case for the LA Dodgers.
No.
If the LA Dodgers don't win this year, possibly next year, it's over. That they need to stop. Clayton Kershaw's not going to be around. That we've already seen him fall off a little bit after the back injury and the what was that other one? Oh, a back injury.
Yeah.
Ryu, who managed to turn it around. I love it. I love that he managed to not be Katy Perry this year. He's playing really well. He's pitching really well. He's lights out, actually.
Is consistent.
But is Ryu Tanaka, basically, right?
Right.
I mean, that's what we get from Tanaka too, and that's one of the things the Yankees are dealing with.
Yeah, maybe the only thing right now that the Dodgers, like you said, they have a year or two left because the Padres are coming. They're on the way, right? We've already seen the Blue Jays are now the '90s reincarnated with a Bichette. They have a Bichette, a Biggio, and a Guerrero on their ball club right now on their MLB roster.
How about this? The San Francisco Giants have a Yastrzemski.
Yeah, that is kind of weird. But yeah, I mean, it is. At some point, I kind of just want to see the Dodgers finally get it. I mean, they've been, and I get that's not something that you share, but after a while, like, dude, all right, you've been there, you have found a way to have something go wrong, you Darvish, every year it seems when you have a chance to get there. So, don't make the same mistakes and find your way there. They have the pop. They have everything in place.
They do.
So, I mean,
they absolutely do.
Yeah. So, and I think they have a manager who's
can they translate that from the regular season to the postseason effectively? And the answer for the Dodgers consistently since 1988 has been no.
Yeah. I mean, this is your chance to have Kershaw's swan song. What does he become? This is his last chance to at least
Clayton Kershaw. Is Clayton Kershaw going to be the Dan Marino of baseball?
Right. Yeah. So, well, we did it. Took a little bit of extra innings as our first back. We had a few tangents, and it almost feels weird. It really is kind of like it's like the first show we did, but we just had a bit more of an idea of how we were going to do it. But man, it's been a long time, been a good while since we've been here. So it's been a long time since we've seen y'all. Thank you for sticking around. If you thought we were going somewhere, we're back.
I just like to say real quick before we sign off, Stroman got knocked out with one out in the first inning.
To the Mets.
And 32 pitches, one out. The Mets bullpen is working now.
Wow.
2 runs, 1 out. Mets bullpen goes to work.
That is a.
I will say this though.
He has had a fall from not from grace, but a fall from pitching royalty for sure.
I will say this: he made a hell of a play to save a run. That 1 out he made at the plate with the bases loaded on a squeeze play that he managed to get just off the right side of the mound and toss to the catcher for a force out at home. That he really had to reach down for and go get. But.
And could you mention that? Did you see? I think it was the Phillies have a pitcher in left field, and he guns a runner out at the plate.
No, I was talking about that last night. He threw the guy out like 310 feet or something like that. Just threw a strike from left field,
out by like 7 or 8 feet. And by the way, it is official. It is official. 4 Astros pitchers have combined for the 14th combined no-hitter all-time. Second in team history, the Seattle Mariners have been combined no-hit by the Houston Astros.
Ouch. Ouch, ouch.
Jason
right.
White, sit. Good night. Thanks, guys, for hanging out. Great to be back with you. Sorry for the time it's been. We can't make up for lost time, but we certainly look forward to getting back in the swing of things and taking you down the around second and on the way towards home as we get ready to make a postseason push. 2 months away till October, and then playoff baseball will be here, and we'll be here to take you along for the ride. For Chris, I'm Graham, all of us here at the Grueling Truth Network. So long. See you next week on Out of Left Field.